Dr. Rizai says, Thracians, Egyptians, Jews, Arabs, Palestinians, and Greeks have Albanian origins. Why only them? Why not the Chinese as well? According to Rizai, even Moses and Muhammad were Albanians. He determined that the Albanian language is more than 12,000 years old. But how come this language didn't have its own script until 1908? Damjanovic says, persistently implanting the idea in young Albanians that they are the descendants of Illyrians, specifically the Dardanian tribe. Archaeologists, artists, historians, and even politicians have made efforts to express this through writing, art, and speech. They revived this name on signs in markets and cafes, and the word, Dardanians, even made its way into the anthem of the splendid library in Pristina. Then there's a complete reversal of theses and roles. Dr. Skender Rizai believes that Serbs are not part of the Slavs but are a Turkic tribe that came from the Caucasus into the land of the Albanians, so they had to flee into the mountains before them. I'm just wondering why Dr. Skender Rizai didn't become a member of the Serbian Academy of Sciences and Arts. SANU. There are plenty of comrades there who share his views. Zagreb professor Branko Horvat takes 1878, the time of the Berlin Congress and the formation of the Pristina League, as a central event and the real beginning of the formation of the Albanian nation. The League of Prison sent a memorandum to the Berlin Congress. When presenting it to the Congress, Prince Bismarck stated, "The Albanian nation does not exist." This statement was entirely accurate at that time. Now, let's ask a few questions to both sets of learned heads. If we momentarily set aside the Serbian name for Illyrians as a whole nation, as found in ancient writings, and examine whether there is any trace of Illyrian tribes among Albanians at the tribal level. Nowhere among Albanians can we find any mention or trace of a single Illyrian tribe from the regions where Albanians have spread. Among Serbs today, more than 90% of the Illyrian tribes mentioned by Pliny are still present. All toponyms in the areas where Albanians have spread are Serbian, which clearly indicates who the indigenous people of those regions are. If Albanians are an ancient cultured people who were literate, how is it that they had no written language of their own until 1908? How is it that the Albanian language, despite all the influences and variations, is the same or a dialect of the language spoken by Albanians in the Caucasus today? The language of Albanians in Serbia belongs to the group of Caucasian dialects and has no common roots with any European language. It is a language that has adopted a large number of words from other languages, especially from Serbian. Joseph Swayan says, Strabo writes that the inhabitants of Macedonia, Illyria, and Epirus spoke the same language and had similar customs. And Halkokandila says, the peoples called Mezi, Illyrians, Poles, and Sarmatians speak the same language. Then, the Sarmatian language is the same as Illyrian or Venetian. This implies that if Albanians were Illyrians, their language should have been the same or very similar to Serbian. These two languages have nothing in common except that Albanian has adopted many Serbian words. Here's how writers from the conspiratorial camp present this. Albanian has originated words like vader, fire, beleg, cow dung, shk rap, rock crack, bungi, hut, brine, slope, Brina Mountains in Montenegro and Dalmatia, Magarak, donkey, and many others. We don't need to dwell on these other words, but only on the penultimate one, brine. It seems that these writers have never heard of Brnjice, the bronze armor of ancient Serbian warriors. As for these other words that Albanians allegedly gave to us Serbs, did they also give them to Russians, Ukrainians, and Poles, not to mention Sanskrit? This is where senseless and unscrupulous falsifications lead. Topographic names, hydronyms, and oronyms are the best evidence of which people were older on a certain territory. These names have resisted all invasions in all corners of the world. There are no names of Albanian origin on the territory of modern Albania. All names are of Serbian origin with Greek translations for some of them. This proves that the entire Albania was Serbian land, and even its southernmost parts were inhabited by Serbs, including the Serbian tribe Vianiti. This is also confirmed by Francis Carter, who says that in Epirus, between Arta and Gjirokastar, a Slavic tribe Vianit lived. 9. Page 298. Arbanasi says, Thracians, just like Illyrians and Goths, spoke the same Slavic language. 30. CXLVII. All ancient peoples on the Balkan Peninsula had their own script, while the Albanian language lacked its own script until 1908. Many Albanian tribes have Serbian origins, as previously explained, so it's not surprising that, according to Miloš Milojević, around the 19th century, they used 50% Serbian words in their language. That's why around 1970, the Albanians adopted the literary language of those who spoke Tosk, as the Geg language was flooded with Serbianisms. When the English Bible Society, which publishes the Holy Scriptures in various languages, decided to print the Bible for Albanians, they had to print it in 5 different dialects: Sicilian, Calabrian, Geg, Tosk, and Shkodër Gegian. 11. Page 14. Arbanasi showed no interest in literacy and cultural activities, so they did not have their own script. Instead, they used the Serbian script and language. They only used their language for communication among themselves. Their languages, 2 dialects they brought from the Caucasus, were very impoverished and without a script, so they underwent a strong influence from other languages, primarily Serbian. The first text in the Albanian language was written in 1462 in the Serbian script. The inhabitants of Albania have 2 names for their country. In the north, they call it Shqiperia, and in the south, Shqipinia. Nowhere is it called Albania, not even among those in the south who live in the area of Belgrade, where the initial name of Albania in Serbia originated. Contemporary advocates for the Albanians close their eyes to this other name in order to create political unity from 2 such different countries, and they do not accept any other name for the Albanians except Shqiptar. As for the explanation of the origin of this name, the moderate ones are satisfied with the interpretation that it comes from the word Shqip, meaning clear, implying that it denotes the inhabitants of the clear land, the Highlanders. But the greatest Austrian enthusiasts for the Albanians suppose that Shqip means eagle, which should be interpreted to mean that all Albanians are not just falcons but authentic imperial eagles, black and yellow, of course. 11. Page 6. The northern Geg and southern Tosk dialects were 2 similar yet so different languages that they had to use interpreters. Hence, foreigners did not see one people among the Albanians, let alone a nation. The Tosk dialect was chosen in 1950 as the literary and official language of Albania because, as we mentioned, the Geg dialect was too flooded with Serbianisms. Vladan Đorđević says, the Albanians did not have their national type. They did not have a unified language. They did not have a national territory. They never formed their state, and they never attempted to form any kind of national government. 11. Page 72. Even at the Berlin Congress in 1878, Bismarck stated without hesitation, there is no Albanian nationality there. 6. Page 3. Writers who are proponents of the Vienna-Berlin school, including our Albanoslavs, found a place for Albanians even in the title of Serbian Emperor Dušan. They claim that he was crowned as the Emperor of Serbs, Greeks, and Albanians. Some even mention Bulgarians. They could have extended the list to include Vlachs, Macedonians, Saxons, and Roma. Dušan's imperial title mentions only Serbs and Romanians, and no one else. Dušan probably didn't title himself as the Emperor of Shepherds, whom he prohibited from marrying Serbs in his code of laws. When talking about the Romanians, it is not the same as the Greeks. In that state, the Greek language was used, but the Roman population represented only a part of the total population, and the state tradition was not Greek but Roman. Romania is the remnant of the Roman Empire, and there was never a Greek Empire. Before the Balkan Wars, Greeks developed their propaganda about the common origin of Greeks and Albanians. They claimed that both are descended from the Pelasgians. Greece and Albania are only halves of one whole, they said, and they will unite to become Greater Greece and Greater Albania. The idea of a Pelasgian origin for both sounds funny because that would mean both are of Serbian origin, which is not true for either. Becker observes ethnic affinity between Tosks and Circassians. 3. Page 364. So, the Albanians got their state in Serbia for the first time in their history, a state they did not fight for and did not want because they fought on the side of the Ottomans against liberation from them. The paradoxical fact is that in this new state, Albania, no rights were granted to Serbs as a people or as a national minority. Such treatment of Serbs in Albania has not changed to this day. The Albanians who remained in Serbia, in Kosovo and Metohija, represented about 35% of the population at the time, enjoyed all the rights of national minorities, and even today, they have practically their own territorial, cultural, and every other autonomy in Kosovo and Metohija. As evidence of their Illyrian origin, Albanians present names they give to their children, such as Ilir, Argon, Tuta, and so on. They choose names like Miss Dardania, and they name taverns, Dodana, and so forth. All of this is absurd and foolish. It's like if we Serbs were to give our children names like Gaius, Augustus, Tiberius, and Pompeius today to prove that we are descended from the Romans. Romanians do this, but they have not convinced anyone of their Roman origin so far. Albanian historian Marmelaku lists Illyrian tribes and includes the Albani tribe, which did not exist, nor was it mentioned by anyone. Then he says, in the 3rd century BC, the Ardians controlled several Illyrian tribes and organized a state under King Agrin, whose territory extended from the Krka River in Slovenia to present-day Albania. 12th article, page 6, Bravo, Ramadan, you have written a truth, but if you were a bit more knowledgeable and knew what you were writing, you probably wouldn't have done it. As for these Ardians, you didn't know that they were the Serbs or Sardi mentioned by Dionysius Cassius, as stated in his first German edition, and that it was only in the French edition that the initial letter, S, was removed by a certain Mr. Grohe, who also signed it. This means that Marmelaku acknowledges that Serbs dominated Illyrian tribes and established a state under Agrin. So where are you Albanians in this story? Are you Serbs?